Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the Systems Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and scale. And today's guest is Nancy Fox. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Addie, great to see you. Thank you for having me today.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited about our conversation today. We're going to talk about productizing your service, which is always a question. How to do that? What's the best way? What does it mean? And we're also going to touch upon how to productize AI so you can create a recurring revenue stream for your business. But before we start, I want to give a big shout out to Diane Menzer from Diane Integrates, because she was a guest on my podcast, and I'm going to include that the episode in the show notes so everyone can listen to it. We had a great conversation about processes and procedures and integration and creating the right mindset for the second in command and also for the visionary in order to grow and thrive and get an organization scale the companies. So I definitely recommend to listen to that chapter, to that episode. But Diane, about now I'm going to introduce you with a bio, and then we're going to jump into our conversation.
Great.
So you are the CEO of ProductWise. So that's product spelled out and wise, W-Y-Z-E. And you're a product development company. You're helping consulting and fractional execs firms grow and scale by developing recurring revenue and subscription productized services. So it's not a one-time only, but it's a productized service where you can create a subscription, and we're going to talk more about that. And signature systems, playbooks, course books, webinars, and paid newsletters. It's very important. You are also the author of a top book on networking, Network Like a Fox, like that, and a keynote speaker and community builder. So tell us, first of all, I always like to ask this question. I know it might be a little bit asked too much, but I think it's always interesting how you got to where you got at. That's always interests me. Like where did you get started and how did you end up doing what you're doing right now?
So I'm really glad you asked the question, because I really did have a funny, an unusual path. I know we all do, really. We have an individual path, but and I really appreciate that question. So I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I was a corporate executive, like a corporate soldier, for a long, long time, but I was in the women's underwear business for a long time. And women's, specifically, I was a product leader in women's bras. And the reason I mention this is because women's bras are a very technical product. It's not like it's not like being on 7th Avenue in the fashion industry. You do have some styling and some trend and all of that, but it is a very technical product. And once you put it into production, and it can sell for years and years and years, a lot of recurring revenue, right? And that was the part of, I loved being in that world because it was really strategic, and it was also technical, and it was also tactical. And it was just a wonderful career. And then when it ended back, around 2000, I decided to go into my own business as a business coach and trainer. And so although I really loved that work, I always missed that product development piece. So what I wound up doing is productizing my own services. Like instead of just sending out a course, or doing training, I actually turned them into different kinds of products, and I would resell them, and I would repackage them all the time. And eventually I started teaching my clients how to turn their expertise and their know-how, instead of just selling it as an engagement, a 3-month engagement or a 6-month engagement, or, training or coaching, for 6 months or a year. I showed them how they could actually systematize and modularize and productize and turn that into recurring revenue that would either adjunct to their business or become the mainstay of their business. And I found that, over the last, few years, with so many people becoming consultants and coaches and fractional executives, it's really hard to distinguish yourself. But when you productize, you now have a competitive edge as well as an additional revenue stream that protects your business. So it became sort of a natural progression. But, it just became, for me, I always see product opportunities so frequently. Most people don't really see it that way when they're in the service business. So that's how I got
Absolutely. So let's start with the definition. Okay, what's the difference between a product and a service? Because a productized service can also sometimes look like a service. So how do you differentiate between what is a product and what is a service?
Great question. And it's actually the number one question that should be asked at the because it's fundamental. So let's just sort of look at the traditional consulting or fractional model. A client wants to, after you're doing your lead generation and your networking and all that good stuff, and they say, yeah, we want to hire you. What you wind up doing is you wind up creating a proposal, and they accept it, and you create a new program for them on how you're going to work with that particular company for their particular goals, for that particular set of circumstances, for those particular groups of people within that company. And it is it's a bespoke experience, right? So you might be on retainer, but every single client is a bespoke experience, and you're reinventing the wheel every single time. After you have a number of clients, there are some things that become very common to each client. You're sort of doing a similar thing in maybe a tweaky way for each client, but it's still, there's so much common. How do you take that commonality and now systematize it and package it in such a way that you could sell it once and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat? So productizing is basically taking your expertise, your know-how, the way you would deliver it in a bespoke, custom way, in your service. You're now putting it into a systematized approach where you're looking at ways you can create a roadmap or a playbook or a methodology or a delivery system or an implementation methodology or a tracking methodology. Those are the kinds of things that you can be selling over and over. Most people think of productizing as one thing, creating a course, but that's the most common, but it's way, way, way far from being the only or even the most lucrative approach to productizing. And today
That's fascinating, Nancy.
Right?
That's a great answer. So do you consider productizing also creating a system of how you deliver to your clients, so then you can hire other consultants that can deliver it?
So that becomes that is a question for each person to answer. In other words, most of the people that come to me want to productize because they don't want to hire a lot of employees. They don't want to grow a big employee-based business. I just spoke with somebody very recently who had a large agency of 28 people, and it was a marketing agency, and it was bespoke, and it was a custom agency. And he said that the stress level was so high. They were full-time employees, and it was project-based. So when the projects dipped and he had to pay all those people, it was a very, very stressful. So he wound up contracting the business and focusing it. And he said the best experience he had was when he had somewhere between 4 and 8 employees. But and when you productize, you can be a solopreneur and productize and use and employ contract workers. You can have no employees. It all depends on how you design your product offer. So a lot of the productized offers can be 0 employees. You might need to have a virtual assistant or maybe somebody who's your marketing assistant, but you don't really have to have any employees, nor do you have to have a delivery mechanism where you have to have people that you teach how to do your method, and they deliver it. It's possible that you want to do that. So there's an option. You have options. The point of it is options. But if you decide that you want to have satellite people delivering your methodology becomes licensable.
That's what I'm thinking, because that can also be a product. So how do you get over the idea that, well, but I'm delivering to the clients. It's my delivery. I'm a human delivering to a client. And of course, it has to be bespoke because that's what they're paying for. Can you get the same experience with a productized service as you will get with a bespoke service?
Yes, sometimes it's even, and it may even be better, and here's why. When you have a bespoke approach, sometimes we feel like, oh, that's so good for them, but for the client, they don't know what they're getting. It's a vague thing. It's misty. It's sort of, I'm going to work with you toward getting something. But when you productize, by its very nature, when you create a product or a productized offer that's encompassed in a packaging, you're delivering specific outcomes. It's an outcome-based delivery system. So right away, every client knows, oh, I'm getting faster, closing business faster to enterprise companies. That's the game plan here. And or we're going to have more salespeople with this kind of training. That's whatever whatever the productized offer is, the outcome is baked in to the structure of the product. So for the client, actually it gives them greater clarity and more comfort and confidence. Plus, they know how much they're spending every month. It's not vague. And they know what they're getting for that investment. So the return on investment is baked into the offer. In terms of it being, you can customize, once you have a methodology, it's not as though you can't customize it. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you have a playbook for an operations efficiency playbook. I'm just making this up. Let's say you decide there are 5 steps to it. You can tailor it to different industries and customize it. So it might be this playbook for medical practices, or a playbook for I don't know, manufacturing companies. And so that's something that you can customize. You can customize it for different levels of people in an organization. The system and the methodology is the foundation, and then you can customize different elements of it.
So let's take an example of that. So let's say we create, because many of our clients would ask us, okay, well, you work, let's say, with many plumbers. Do you have a playbook for plumbers that it's just plug and play? I say to that, well, we have the fundamentals of it for sure, but your company is different. ABC plumbing is different than XYZ plumbing, and we need to adjust it, and we need to tailor made it to you, because buying a manual is not going to do it, because you already bought many manuals and nothing got implemented. So it's a done it for you service, which has its it has its pluses and it has its minuses, but I do feel like there is a need for that as well. So how do you combine the productizing with the need to tailor-made something to the company?
That's the funnest part of what I do with people. We figure out how to make it really specific to you and make you have a competitive edge. So years ago, there was this woman that I worked with, who was a very successful real estate broker in New York City. And what I loved about what she was doing, New York is a fabulous real estate market, right? She focused only on one kind of real estate. She only worked with people who wanted to live in lofts, loft type, right? That was her baby. I know lofts. I knew everything about lofts. I know everything about the lifestyle of lofts. I know everything about the agreements of lofts. I know everything about she knew locations and what kinds of lofts were in Brooklyn and what kinds of lofts were in the city. So she was an expert in her niche. So productizing, first of all, I believe even in every service business, when you niche down, you actually give yourself a competitive edge if you select the right niche markets. So we do a lot of assessing of what niche markets should you actually target, right? And we actually use some very special AI tools that we've developed for that. But I digress. So let me just say, so let's go back to the plumbers. Let's just say that you do plumbing, but you're focusing on HVAC, I mean, they're so interesting because on the radio, there are all these advertisements of different plumbers. They each have their own specialization. Some of them are doing HVAC, transforming old air conditioning systems into the modern technology, or copper pipes, or what, or maybe it's because they're a family-owned business and they have a different pricing model and a different service model. So everybody can focus on a different element in their product. One of the things that we love doing is helping people figure out what should their product be in relationship to their competitive edge that they're going to be creating. So that's part of the value proposition that we want to have people have.
Okay, so it's basically the value of the product or what this product will be, but it can still be a combination. It can be a combination of the human element. We're not taking it out. I was talking more because the plumbing company, like a consultant servicing the plumbing company, right? So,
yes.
So a consultant, when they go into the plumbing company, they still need to create a unique experience for that plumbing company because it's a done it for you service.
Okay,
it's not
got
just
it.
do it yourself. But honestly, I mean, you can have as a consultant, you can have a do it for yourself for those that want to do it themselves. They can be done it with you for those that want that support. And then you have your customers that want it done it for you, which still need to be done if you so choose to do it as the fractional consultant. But you open also, from what I can tell, you can open a broader market of those that want to do it themselves or done it with you, because then you can have different tiers of your offer, so you can also
Yes.
do it that way.
So that's now I understand what you were asking before. I got it. Well, let's take a look at that example. It's a really good one because it's a very pragmatic industry, right? It's a very pragmatic, it's it's a home services business. And so let's just take a look at, okay, so here's our plumbing company. It's a family-owned business, right? And I'm the consultant to this company. Maybe they want to offer a different side offer. For example, in a plumbing business, you're doing the work, as a plumbing company, you might be servicing the plumbing problem, but maybe on the back end, you offer a subscription for maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And you show your client how to do that and offer it, because they're not used to doing a maintenance program. They've never done anything on subscription. They send out an invoice and they get paid. That's all they know how to do. So you, the consultant, can actually show them how to turn it into a subscription.
So that can be productized, because I'm looking at productizing from
Yes,
my
or
viewpoint.
or the reverse. Maintenance is one. How about prevention? That's a whole other subscription.
So what you were saying, if I understand you correctly, because I'm asking for me, let's say me or any other consultants, how can we productize that service, as opposed to getting on the call with the plumber and explain each plumber how to do that, or each plumbing company, we have a webinar about it, or we have a book about it, or we have a checklist about it. So all of that can be productized in order to deliver better. So it's basically better deliverables from you as a consultant.
Or even additional deliverables, not just better, like maybe there's a lead in for information, like a lead magnet, like to get them in the door to learn more about you, but they can literally have bolt-on offers that support the actual repair work or the installation work. It could be maintenance, it could be prevention, and those are things that people, for example, when you have a lawn service, your lawn grows every week. You have to have a continual lawn service, and that sort of maintenance, right? Same thing with, your air conditioning systems or whatever. Every year you have to have certain maintenance that goes on. So there are a lot of different ways that we look at how to productize and how to add in additional services that are encapsulated that can be sold over and over and over.
Absolutely. Give us an example. Tell us a success story of one of your clients where they didn't have any productization whatsoever, and then they start productizing. What happened?
So it's interesting. I'm working with somebody. She's an advisor to the pet food industry, and she's a specialist in developing pet food products. And she noticed a lot of disconnect between the technical people and the scientists and the chemists in a company, and the business part of the company, the marketing and sales, and you know, and there's like this, they're doing it over here from a very technical mindset, and their other part of the company is looking at it from a very business-minded, money, dollars and cents, profit, revenue, product, you know, efficiency, and she saw a gap to be filled. And so that's something that she's working on. And how to deliver that, there are different components to that methodology. So that's something. And another person is
Like what? Like, let's talk about, I'm actually interested. Let's give the examples. Like, what would be the different components of that? How do we productize that?
So when you dig under the, when you look under the hood, there are different parts of that equation, because for example, a very common, this is not just in the pet food industry, any kind of agency or service business, very often the people who are, they're more on the technical or tactical side, rarely get involved on the business strategy side. That disconnect bugs a lot of people on the leadership end. So bridging that, giving them business acumen becomes an enormous opportunity. It can be done in workshops. It can be done in strategic sessions. It can be done in coaching. It can be done in surveys and analyses. It can be done in assessments. And it can be done in using AI training tools after it's all over to keep them up to speed and engaged in that learning, all new things that are happening. So maybe it turns into yearly retreats or conferences. So it can be so many different things. It could be what do you call that? Not a panel, but like a board of people who actually look at solving certain business problems jointly, or it could be a program that breaks down silos between departments. All of these are productizable into methodologies. The delivery mechanisms can be live workshops, it could be coaching, it could be online training, it could be a combination, it could be AI agents or co-pilots. Now we have AI tutors and AI teachers, so many different ways. It could be books, and it could be many different tools. So the actual delivery mechanism of a product has a lot to do with what people in that field feel more comfortable with, how they learn, you know, are they techie? Are they more, you know, sort of creative? We have to develop those things in alignment with what people's natural learning styles are and what they like working with.
Absolutely. And, you know, Nancy, what we do is we create the processes and procedures for companies. We do it for consistency, for efficiency, for legacy, you know, in terms of the knowledge transfer,
Right.
to prepare for exit, so the business is sellable. And it seems like this is what you are doing for the service, for the fractional consultants and for the consultants. You're basically making it into a business that has repeatable systems that then they have a value. You can evaluate the business. The business is not just you, but it is something that is repeatable, replicatable. The success can be replicated. Your methodology can be replicated. It's not just a course. You're right. I mean, hey, Nancy, let's say you sign up as a client. Here is a course on how to develop processes. No, this is a methodology of, okay, we're going to go through module 1, where you are going to, first of all, we're going to do process mapping. Let's say for us, you know, we do process mapping first. Good. Listen to this video, come back, come prepared, do your homework. So it's basically creates this whole deliverable that is standard across the entire organization every single time. And you don't, you know, the time that you think about something that is bespoke or something that is very peculiar and specialized for that particular client, you don't have to do it anymore, because you have all those components that are repeatable.
It's so amazing,
right?
I began to realize that every time I was starting with a new client, I had the entire workbook ready. So I knew, okay, on day 1, this is the first email I'm sending to them. This is what they're getting with that. Then I would send the next one when I got that back. Then we're going to set up this kind of meeting. This is what we're going to do in this meeting. Then I said, and so it was all systematized. But here's the interesting thing. To your point, once you systematize and you create the entity or the package or the whatever the product, whether it's a blueprint, a method, a system, you know, an assessment, it doesn't matter what it is. It's now your intellectual property. And to your point, as soon as you have developed your own intellectual property, the value of your business escalates, because if you have two things, if you have intellectual property and recurring revenue, immediately anybody that's interested in buying a business is looking for those two things. If you don't have those two things, there's very little value in the business because the business is only you.
Right.
And you're not saleable once you're out of the business. So there's nothing to sell anymore, right?
Absolutely. So let's take an example like a fractional CMO as an example, a chief marketing officer. What would you recommend for a CMO as their productized service?
Well, the thing is, a CMO has so many opportunities because marketing is so extensive. It covers branding, it covers data analysis, it covers delivery mechanisms, it delivers lead generation, it covers so many different things, right? So I would say that anybody that is a fractional CMO should look at the number one thing that people look to them for. What is the number one question that people ask them about? What's the thing they come to them for most? Maybe they've already specialized in something. Maybe they specialize in branding packages. I spoke to a woman who was looking at productizing her marketing business, and she focused on the pharmaceutical industry, and what her productization became an entire brand packaging. She just offered brand packaging for pharma companies.
Right. So you
We
just
had
have to
all those packages all set up, and they were not cheap, but they were systematized, and they were rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that's what it's needed, is rinse and repeat, because then you can replicate your success. Absolutely.
And again, outcome based. Brand package 1 gives you X. Brand package 2 gives you Y. See what I'm saying? Once you know what you're getting, you now know ROI becomes very easy to measure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it also can be, now that you're mentioning it, it can be the ROI, what the client wants to achieve, right? You can run it through a certain funnel of like, okay, what do you want to achieve? I want to achieve, for instance, 0 errors. Right now there are callbacks, so people are complaining. I want to reduce errors to 0. Good. Then you can run through a system of identifying what part of your company creates those errors. And then you are creating also that productization of the solution for that particular area. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another example, just one more example, a strategic advisor who's, again, bespoke every time. One day, events, and then he would hope that his clients would, and then he would have implementation sessions with them, but it was bespoke every time. And sometimes his months would go, he would have good months and bad months, and he was never quite sure. But, when you turn it into a tool that takes strategy conceptualization and becomes a predictive tool for what happens if the market goes this way, what happens if it's almost like, you have scenario planning in a tool that can be sold too. So
but those systems things that the clients of that consultant will then use themselves without the consultant being present.
Could be, yeah, it can be. Once you sell it, it becomes, they log in and they use they're shown, there's some way of educating of the client, either a tutorial or a kickoff training session, or a how to use this, or a combination. And then they just use it themselves.
Yeah.
And then they can have follow-up conversation. How should we look at it? Let's have an interpretation session, or even but that interpretive session can be delivered virtually, or it could be done in person. So again, how you actually put your product together has lots of different ways of putting the components together.
Absolutely. Nancy, that has been a fascinating conversation. So if our listeners want to know more about you, they want to use your services, they have questions, how can they find you?
So you can reach me at nancy@productwise.com, and happy to, chat with you. And also you can reach me on LinkedIn I'm on LinkedIn, Nancy Fox Fractional /fractional, and Nancy Fox Fractional. And also, you can, if you find me on LinkedIn, you can book a call with me, and I'm happy to chat with you. And thank you. I'm so happy to have this conversation with somebody. What great questions you asked. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's fascinating. You know, I'm all about systems and I understand what you're doing. And I think it's so needed because it takes the ambiguity and the randomity, just like random things that happen throughout the day, just puts it into systems that you can then do over and over and bring a great product that has a return, that has a justifiable and a very easy to explain return on investment. And that's definitely very needed. So thank you, Nancy, for all the knowledge that you shared with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love chatting with people who really are looking for solutions for business owners like all of us. So thank you so much, Adi.
You're very welcome.